Hi, welcome to my video. Today we are going to put some fractions in order from least to greatest. And I'm going to show you a trick that I use in order to do that. So we are going to order fractions today. Okay, and the one thing when we're ordering fractions is we have to understand something about fractions. There's actually two different types of fractions. There are fractions that fall on the number line right here, and there are fractions that fall on the number line right here, okay? Fractions that fall between 0 and 1, those are called proper fractions. Those are fractions that follow the definition of what a fraction is, and because a fraction is a part of a whole thing, that means it's a part of a whole. It's not one whole thing. It's going to be only a part of a whole thing. We never reach that one whole thing until we get to the type of fraction that's called an improper fraction. Improper fractions are going to be 1 or greater. They're going to fall on the number line at this point or farther out. Improper fractions are always greater than proper fractions. The other thing about proper fractions is I like to compare them to this guy called 1/2. If I can compare my proper fractions to 1/2, it can help me put these fractions in order from least to greatest. Okay, an example of a couple proper fractions, maybe 2/3. 2/3 is proper because my whole thing is broken into 3 pieces and I only have 2. So I don't have a whole thing. 4/7. My whole thing is broken into 7 pieces. That's the role of the denominator to tell me how many pieces the whole thing is broken into. But I only have 4 of those parts, so I don't have a whole thing. Whereas my improper fractions are going to look like this. I have more than one whole thing, because if my whole thing is broken into 5 parts, I actually have 2 sets of 5 in my numerator, which means I have 2 whole things and then a little bit more left over. 13/9. Same thing. My whole thing is broken into 9, and I have 13 parts. That means I have one whole set of 9, and then maybe even a little bit more. So let's use this example. We're going to put these fractions in order from least to greatest using the strategy, using just this simple strategy of understanding the different fractions, right? So here's my list. The first thing I'm going to ask myself is this fraction proper or improper? Improper. This one, proper. I already showed it right there, it's proper. This one, if my whole thing is broken into 20 parts and I only have 7, I have less than one whole thing. This one is also proper because my whole thing was broken into 10, but I only have 9. Do you know what I just found out? If I only have one improper fraction in my list, this is my largest fraction. I could kind of eliminate this one from the comparison part right now. This is my largest fraction. Remember, improper fractions are 1 or greater. This one falls to the right of 1 on the number line. These 3 are proper. They fall to the left of 1. So now, the next thing I'm going to do with these guys is I'm going to compare them to 1/2. I'm going to see how do these fractions compare to 1/2. But I'm not going to actually write 1/2 on the line. I'm going to write the denominator that they share on the line. And I'm going to take 1/2 of 3, which is 1/2, 1/2 of 20, which is 10, and 1/2 of 10, which is 5. When your numerator is half of your denominator, this fraction right here is equivalent to 1/2. So this fraction is 1/2. This one is equivalent to 1/2. This one that I just created was equivalent to 1/2, and now I'm going to compare. Are the numerators the same? No, they are not. So these fractions are not equivalent. And this numerator is bigger than 1/2, which means 2/3 is greater than 1/2. Now, when I compare these guys, we have a fraction that's equivalent to 1/2. Is 7/20 the same as 10/20? No, they're not. And in fact, 7 is less than 10, so that means 7/20 is less than 1/2. And here, we have this fraction equivalent to 1/2. 9/10 and 5/10 are not the same thing. And 9 is actually greater than 5, which means that 9/10 is greater than 1/2. What I just found out is this is the only fraction here that's less than 1/2. And that fraction means that it is going to be the smallest. It's going to fall on the number line between 0 and 1/2. It's going to be the smallest. Now my last two fractions that I have left, they're going to fall somewhere in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the cross products between these two fractions. I'm going to take 10 times 2, which is 20, and 3 times 9, which is 27. When I take the cross products, in order to compare fractions, what I have to do is I have to compare those cross products. Because 20 is less than 27, that means 2/3 is less than 9/10. So I'm going to draw a quick number line again, and we're going to plot these on our number line. We know that 7/20 is less than 1/2. It goes somewhere here on the number line. I'm not sure exactly where, but I know it's my smallest one. This 5/4, it goes to the right of 1 because it's improper. These two, 2/3 and 9/10, go somewhere between 1/2 and 1/2. I know that 2/3 is less than 9/10, so my 2/3 is going to go closer to 0. My 9/10 is going to go closer to the whole number 1. And I just put these 4 fractions in order from least to greatest by doing something that I like to call reasoning. I just reasoned through based on my knowledge of fractions. Okay, let's do another example real quick. We're going to compare 11/3, 1/2, 3/8, and 7/2. Okay, I'm going to use my strategy. I'm going to say that's improper, proper, proper, improper. So my two proper fractions are going to be the smallest ones. I'm going to write them out. I'm going to find the cross products. I'm going to compare the cross products. And because 8 is greater than 6, 1/2 is greater than 3/8. That means 3/8 is smaller than 1/2. Now I'm going to compare my two improper fractions, and I can use my strategy of cross products to also compare those. I'm going to multiply in the cross. 3 times 7 is 21. 2 times 11 is 22. When you use your cross products, always remember to put your product up by your numerator. And now I'm going to compare. Because 22 is greater than 21, 11/3 is greater than 7/2. If 11/3 is greater, 11/3 is going to be my largest, and 7/2 is going to be my smallest, and I am done. It is as simple as that to put fractions in order from least to greatest. Of course, this is just one tool in your tool belt. If you don't know how to find a common denominator and rename fractions to have all the same denominator, or if you don't know how to turn fractions into decimals and compare using place value, please look for some of my other videos and review those things. Those are important things to know when you're comparing fractions, but this is just one little trick that I want you to put in your tool belt.